I wanted to bring today's episode to the podcast talking about IVF. So, IVF may have been recommended for you, and you may be thinking that IVF is your next best step. So, if this is you, this episode is for you. We're going to be talking about what we see with people that have gone through IVF and it hasn't worked, and really some lessons you can learn from that, and really how to dig deeper when you maybe perhaps have done some generalized recommendations and feel that IVF is your next step, especially if you've got low AMH and high FSH, and you're like, wait a minute, this is my next step. We're going to give you some key takeaways here so you can decide if it is indeed your next best step. Let's go. Hey there, I'm Sarah Clark, founder of FabFertile and your host. I believe the functional approach is the first step for anyone on the fertility journey, and my aim is to help you get pregnant naturally. Today, we are digging into how to know if IVF is your next best option to help improve your chances of pregnancy success. And this episode is for you is if you would rather prepare your body naturally for a pregnancy, but you have no idea how to fast track your chances of pregnancy success, so IVF seems like the next best option. You are ready to get pregnant and have your baby, and you're thinking IVF is your next best option, but you want to know how to improve your chances of a successful IVF transfer. You have low AMH and high FSH, and you've already experienced failed IVF, canceled cycles, or been told you are a poor responder, but you've also been told that IVF is your only option to conceive. Thanks so much for listening. I'm so thankful that you're here. Make sure you hit subscribe or follow. And if you know someone else who is on the fertility journey, please share this podcast with them. Okay, so today we're going to be talking all about if you are planning an IVF in your near future. And we talked about really who this episode is for. And so today, talking first about many times with low AMH and high FSH, similar to me, where I was diagnosed with premature ovarian insufficiency at 28, I had both my kids with donor eggs, and then years later, I discovered food sensitivities, gut infections, and chronic stress. But really, in the very beginning, no one told me there was anything I could do to improve my health. It was basically, here's the premature ovarian insufficiency diagnosis, and we work with a lot of people with POI or also a diminished ovarian reserve, where they've been told, donor eggs are your only option, or you had better rush to IVF. So that's what I was told. I didn't get a second opinion. I had no idea these other health issues were going on with me. And, luckily enough for me, the donor eggs work, but many people think when they select donor eggs, that's guaranteed. And, stats are telling us it's around 50% chances of even that working. And then you've got the, your postpartum period and the health of your children to consider, because, why is there an imbalance in your body to begin with, you or your partner? Why is this not working? So always important to work on your health. To me, there's no negative side effects of working on your health. You either work on it now, if you work, or if you don't, you'll need to work on it later. Potentially, you'll be in a health crisis if you haven't addressed what's happening with your health and why for you it's impacted your fertility. So many people get frustrated that why is the person down the street who's hasn't changed their diet, hasn't gone gluten-free, hasn't done anything, and they're able to get pregnant. Well, for you and I, it's impacted our health, whatever our health issues. For me, it was food sensitivities and gut infections, like I talked about, thyroid imbalance and more. It's impacted our fertility. Other people, it may, they have diabetes, heart disease, maybe they have other issues going on in their body. For you and I, it is our fertility. And so, comparison in any part of life, because just what the common quote is, comparison is the thief of joy. So whenever I find myself going down that little slippery slope of comparison, I literally catch myself and kind of bring myself back, because there is no, literally running your own race is the only thing you can do. And comparing yourself to others, we don't know, everyone has their own journey and what's happening in their life. And it's to, when we do that comparison thing, to me, it just doesn't serve us. Okay, so if you have been told that IVF is your only option, so we see many people that, with low AMH, so low anti-Mullerian hormone, being told that, that IVF is their only option. Same with FSH. Typically, for IVF, they won't even do it if it's higher than 10. So you may have just been at that point told donor eggs if you're if your FSH is higher than that. So, and many people think, as you know, that that's the only option. And then also there's this whole panic side of things that could happen. So so like myself, like I'm like type A, let's just get this thing done. Give me the plan. I'm going to roll along. And when I was given that diagnosis, I didn't, didn't, like I said, I didn't stop to look at the other health issues going on in my body. I remember the OBGYN grabbing the IVF brochure on her shelf, giving it to me. And I went straight to IVF with donor eggs and like in a panic, like rushed right there, called them, got on the list, got on a whole bunch of other lists too. I had all kinds of plans going on, all to do with trying to make this work, really pushing it to work. Never once looking at what I could do for my health. I don't know. I just when I look back, it's a very bizarre period of time, like completely disconnected from my body. So, and the average IVF can take 3 cycles at a cost of $60,000. So why, when we've got this, we myopically will focus on the diagnosis, in this case, low AMH, high FSH, premature ovarian insufficiency, diminished ovarian reserve. Here it is. And wait, here's IVF. And that's obviously a huge investment. And an average percent chance of that working is 30%. So obviously there's clinics that tell you that it's higher, but it's an average success rate of 30%. So and what we found is so people come to see us. Most people come to see us after they have selected IVF. So they've done IVF, it hasn't worked. They've either had failed cycles, they've been called a poor responder, they have gone through multiple cycles that either hasn't worked. They've had chemical pregnancies, they've had miscarriages. So there's a lot of emotional, psychological trauma associated with this. And this journey is, it can impact all aspects of your life, from your relationships to your career to everything, and be really kind of feeling in a very stuck place, and feeling like that nothing's going to work. So if that is you and you've been told, either you're considering IVF right now because you have these diagnoses, this diagnosis, you have low AMH or high FSH, or diminished ovarian reserve or premature ovarian insufficiency, and you're thinking, okay, wait, IVF seems like the next logical step. What we find with working with our clients is that people worry that, oh my goodness, you're not going to find anything. Like, I've done everything. Most people that come to us have already doing, eating a clean diet, taking out the toxins out of their lifestyle. So the products, the cleaning products and more, made those, non-toxic. They may have been doing fertility yoga. They may have looked at their exercise. They may have, like we say, with the clean diet piece. But with our Fab Fertile method, it's really taking that very targeted approach. Using testing, we have access to functional lab testing that really just helps us tweak this so exactly why it's not working. And so the themes that we see are either food sensitivities, like I talked about, non-celiac gluten sensitivity, gluten being off the chart. When they have gluten, similar to myself, when we have gluten, it just sends a cascade of the body mounts an immune response to the body. If your body's under attack, the body mounts an immune response to the specific food. And if your body's under attack, it wants to survive, not procreate. So we see that. We see blood sugar dysregulation. That was me for years, super like hangry all the time, and mood swings and sugar cravings. We see thyroid dysfunction. People just focusing, myopically on the TSH, being told it's normal, and not digging further with a full panel. And why is it off to begin with? It's not just about giving medication for that. It's, let's consider, why is it off to begin with? And so those are some of the main, obviously the mental, emotional stress of that. Most people we work with are in the healthcare field. They are either nurses or doctors. They're typically like busy type A professionals, so lawyers, accountants, and teachers, and more. But really this kind of like type A, get it done kind of person. They've, everything in their life, they've, achieved a lot, and now they're throwing everything into this journey. And so, although getting stuff done is obviously your strength, can also be a weakness as well, or an opportunity for improvement. So we say that, like, wait a minute, it's not all about going hard, going all in like that. It's how do we open up to receive, being softer? How do we still move forward, but not, I've talked about this before, with the foot down to the foot down to the gas pedal and just flying along the highway like breakneck speed. It's how do we move forward with intention and to that receiving space and tap more into our feminine energy? Because a lot of people we see are like the left-brained, logical, masculine energy, kind of more like we're going to do, we're going to achieve, we're going to keep going. And that's served us well. But then how do we get into more of our intuition, into more of our, the softer side of things? So it's, the pendulum is kind of a little off balance. So we need both for, masculine and feminine energy. So those are some of the themes we see. So the mental emotional stress is huge. And like when I've talked about this before, but when I was going through the fertility journey, I literally, like, I wouldn't even have said I was stressed. It's like ridiculous. But because I was just like, I just keep going. I'm fine. To a point then when you're not fine, you find yourself driving along the highway, having a meltdown because someone's, having road rage or whatever. Like for me, it always came out as anger. I'm not a big crier. I'm more of a like angry kind of thing. So I know when things are out of alignment, if I haven't meditated, if I haven't whatever, I haven't served myself. And it's not about anyone else. It's like, what have I not done for myself? And that's when I know things are out of alignment. So for you, if you've been given these diagnoses and you've been given a diagnosis of, low AMH, high FSH, you're on the fertility journey and nothing's worked, and you've been told IVF is your next best option. Before you go there, and I don't want for you to be like people that come to work with us is like they've gone through a lot, and there's still things we can do, and we help them get pregnant naturally, or their next IVF it actually works. But they've experienced, the being labeled that poor responder, having canceled cycles, having chemical pregnancies. It hasn't, a lot of turmoil that it hasn't worked, and because no one has dug deeper, and those missed healing opportunities have been missed. And so the next thing we see is, so many people, that this whole fertility industry in itself, it just sends, it makes us feel in a panic. And if you're like me, this is something I still work on every day, is patience. And the fertility industry sort of has us, we're too old, we're running out of time. We only have a certain amount of eggs. It's, it's game over, and we better rush to IVF. So it perpetuates that. If you're prone to that impatience or feeling like you're running out of time thing, that just makes it worse, which again is counterintuitive if you're bringing life into this world, right? To how do you take the shoulders away from your ears? How do you, being able to get into that receiving space? And if we're all panicked and our stomach's tight and we're just clenched because we're rushing towards this to make this work and to push it to work with hormones and drugs and more, it to me, it's like counterintuitive. Obviously, IVF does have its place, right? So I'm not against it. Obviously, I had both my kids with donor eggs. Obviously, I wouldn't have beautiful children if it wasn't for science and technology. But what I know for myself, for my health took a nosedive, years later. And then for the clients that we work with, they've been told that that's the only way that it'll work. And sometimes in a short period of time, people with premature ovarian insufficiency, and more have been told, it won't work, and they're getting pregnant naturally. So if it can work for them, it can work for you. So, so the impatience piece is, especially if you're a type A, right? It can have you feeling very panicked. And rushing ahead to IVF is not addressing the underlying healing opportunities as to why it hasn't worked in the first place. So to me, it's, if you work on your health, and it's not just you, even though we're typically dealing, with female factor infertility, but it's not just you, it's including your partner as well. And most times, and we're also looking at semen analysis for the partner, but, and many times the partner doesn't even know what they can do to improve their preconception health. And there's always things that he can do to work on his health. So you'll each have your own goals, but it's doing this together because, you're setting up that healthy foundation for both of your health and then for your future family. So, and then recognizing, like, if you are feeling that you're in a panic, to really, to really kind of dig into that piece to see where it comes from. For me, the impatience comes from my dad. Like, I grew up and he's an entrepreneur. And he was always like, if you didn't get out the car fast enough, he'd like, hurry up, let's go. Everything's going to pay. We got to eat our dinner quickly. Everything's fast. We got to go really quickly. And I remember like walking down the hallways of the school, like rushing so fast to get to the classroom. And I don't even know why I was going fast, but I just wanted to get everywhere fast, eat my dinner fast. Like everything has to be done quickly. Like, let's go. We're in a panic. And now I still move quickly, but now not in such a crazy way. And I'm like, I don't need to, like, each day you can do a few things and you can move forward. And before I'd have this massive list and I'm like, let's attack it and we got to go. And so again, that's like our superpower. If that's you, if you're like checking it off the list and you're just, go, it's a superpower. But then how does that impact you? And for me, I've got a lot of energy. I can keep going until then it no longer serves you. So for me, with that fertility diagnosis thing, I look back on, like, I grew up in it was a cedar house in the forest. It was, we had a lot of carpenter ants. My mom sprayed these carpet, like she had someone come in regularly to spray the carpenter ants. My dog died of cancer at 10. I got this infertility diagnosis. My brother's blood cancer. Was the fact that we inhaled all those toxins? I don't know. Was the fact that I probably had a food sensitivity from the get going? Like, I remember, like, at 12 looking, I had these dark circles under my eyes. I always had a food sensitivity that I didn't know about. Then my early 20s, I had acne. After, in my teens, I didn't have any acne at all. My periods were all over the place in my teenage years. They were so heavy. I remember like fainting, like passing out, and they were like soaked through pad after pad. And I was like, mortified about this. Didn't tell anyone. I'm like, oh my God, I'd have to go to bed. It was horrible. And then they went away. And then the periods were gone. And I was like, thank goodness. I don't need to deal with this. This was a nightmare. But obviously that was my body was completely out of balance. And then I was put on the birth control pill and didn't get to the root cause, and then got this diagnosis. But I do believe I could have balanced my hormones back then, when I was still cycling naturally. Obviously, I didn't discover any of this until, years later. So we see a lot of these sort of, some similar things with our clients, with the food sensitivity piece, and then I also university, I remember being like so tense. Like, I didn't know I was tense, but I was so tense. Like, at one point, I TMJ in my jaw was so tight, I could barely open it to put a little fry in. Obviously, the fry was probably bad for me because it was probably coated in gluten. But all of that interesting. Like, I wouldn't have considered myself an anxious person, but looking back, I'm like, yeah, I think some of these things were, how you reframe it and how you look at it, but some anxiety. So like for me, it was some mood issues, irritability. So I tell you all this so that you can see if there's something going on with you. I'm not, hopefully you can see something in your story. You're like, oh, wait a minute, I've got some mood issues, or wait a minute, I had my hair started like changing consistency. Then it was falling out, and everyone said my thyroid was normal. Well, it wasn't normal. Like, no one looked at the full panel. It's almost like that medical gaslighting where you're like, there's something wrong, and I'm just been given a pill and, brushed aside, you're fine. And, trying to figure out this complex diagnosis by myself, and these chat groups saying, sorry, you're doomed. You're finished. So, so really, and then in there, the panic that, it wouldn't work, that and I'm a planner, potentially like you are, plan A, B, C, D, I'm going to do this, going to do that, blah, blah, blah. And then with the wasting time piece is what we see is then people aren't going deep enough. And I used to do this. I'd be like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Well, if I went deep enough on the first thing and really explored all of it and seeing what's been missed, instead of just going surface level and, missed some of those healing opportunities, then I believe that's the case in many things, right? Where you're just doing it part way. Maybe you self-sabotage. Maybe you're like, oh, I changed the diet and it didn't work, but did you go deep enough? Did you really take it out? Did you really note it on a symptom checklist to see if you have any symptoms, when you took it out and then brought it back in? The foods. Did someone really figure out maybe you actually had, a parasite or a gut infection? Because you can eat the most pristine diet ever, follow the fertility diet and fertility superfoods, but maybe you got a parasite or you got a fungal infection or more bacteria. And so, that's impacting your body's ability to conceive if there's an active infection going on. And we see that all the time. So just if you feel you've already wasted so much time, and most people, it doesn't matter, when you are ready to expand your family, you want to do it then. You don't want to wait. So it doesn't matter how old you are. Whenever you've decided, you and your partner are like, wait, we want to start to build our family, that's when you want it to work. And so, it's important to honor that piece. You may have felt that you've wasted time and everyone else around you is moving on while you're stuck and it's not working. And that's that comparison piece, which can be, it's to honor that it comes up. It'll keep coming up until we address it. Right. So if you're feeling like you've already wasted time, digging deeper, like going on each kind of category, whether food sensitivities, the mental, emotional side of things, maybe you're just like, I'm fine. Everything's okay. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to bury myself in work. I'm going to keep working and not address how this has impacted your relationship, how this has impacted your social life, that maybe, especially in the last 2 years, like how this has impacted all areas of your life. And then people seemingly moving on with their children, and you may feel stuck. And that's what brings up the panic. So like to honor that to begin with, that this journey is hard, that first of all, you're not alone. The feelings that you have are completely normal, and not to judge them, to say like, oh my goodness, I shouldn't, it's fine to feel, sad or, happy for them, but sad for you. Someone's making an announcement or more. So, and then the next one we have, and so with our Fab Fertile method, we take a targeted approach. Like we have access to lab testing, use the testing, and then we develop a protocol. And then that protocol will then help you take these targeted action steps. So, why it's not working, and you can start to see shifts as you move along. And people tell us all the time, it's like they come in and like, oh my goodness, my eczema is gone after like 3 weeks, or, oh wait, my period is no longer like painful and heavy, or I'm no longer spotting, or, the mood slowly starts to improve. That sometimes takes a little bit of time, but over time you're like, wait a minute, you might have thought of yourself as an anxious person or irritable person, or maybe depressed. And that starts to clear as you start to work on these other missed healing opportunities that conventional medicine will just throw a pill at you. And then the mental, emotional side of this journey, because it's, as you say, it impacts all aspects of your life. So having someone to guide you through that is key. And then, so many people, and like we've kind of talked about here before, you may have already made a lot of the natural changes. You've probably read many of the fertility books, done the fertility superfoods. You've, made many of the changes. Maybe you're already changed out your feminine hygiene. You're already doing non-toxic products. You've switched all your cleaning products. You have you're taking a whole whack of supplements to optimize your egg health. Perhaps your partner's taking some. Maybe he's struggling a little bit with the supplements. We see that a lot. Where and then ends up being like you're reminding someone all the time, and potentially goes into nagging, and you're like, why won't he do it? What he's supposed to do? And that's why I always encourage couples never attempt to coach your partner. And I am a coach, and I know I do not do that with my partner. My husband, I've been married for almost 26 years now, and that doesn't work. He will come along when he's ready, and having an outside person to help you guys do that is key, because he knows what he needs to do, and he's not doing it for whatever reason. So dragging someone across the finish line is never recommended. But yeah, you have probably read all the books. You have followed all the blogs. Everything you've already started meditating. You've done the fertility yoga. You have done the affirmations. You have visualized this working. You've probably done a lot, right? And most people that we work with, they've tried for at least 2 years, or they've had at least one failed IVF or IUI. And thing is, when many of these changes are generalized, right? We can follow some of these diets, and maybe these diets have worked for someone. That's why they've written a book on it, written a blog, and been very successful, because it's worked for someone. But is it right for you? Maybe you're intolerant to the avocado you're having every day, to have your fertility superfoods, because maybe you have leaky gut because you took multiple antibiotics for an infection you're dealing with. Maybe you're on hormonal birth control, which all of these then will predispose you to food sensitivities and leaky gut or intestinal permeability, and then you end up being intolerant to your favorite food, which we see a lot. And so some of these foods may be great, but like, we've had people intolerant to lettuce, we've had people intolerant to walnuts, people intolerant to paprika, like just odd things. And then as you start to reduce the inflammation in your body, take out those inflammatory foods, not forever, as you heal the gut, then you can bring most of them back in. And so, what is the tipping point? And many times, before we work with a lot of people that have an autoimmune disease as well, and the fertility, and on the fertility journey, and sort of ask them, well, what happened before the autoimmune disease? Well, maybe it was an intense job, or like high stress at school, or maybe there was a divorce, or maybe there was a death in the family or more. So what's triggered it? And similar with the fertility diagnosis too, like what's happened before you were diagnosed with that? Where was there a huge period of stress? And, did you recognize that it was stressful? Did you, get support with that? Because many times we don't even, you reflect back and go, yeah, damn, that was a lot. You might have kept going. Maybe you buried yourself. Maybe your coping mechanisms is just to push it right down and just keep going. I'm fine. And then, maybe you're helping everyone else. Forget about helping yourself. And then with the partner piece, it's like, so we see a lot of people, because it is female factor fertility that we're typically dealing with, low AMH and high FSH and diminished ovarian reserve, premature ovarian insufficiency, and more. We will see the female partner's done all kinds of changes, made all these generalized recommendations, but the male partner, like we said, he hasn't done as much. And it's not to say that like 99% of the couples we work, the male partner is extremely supportive. They will do whatever needs to be done. They just may not know what they can do. And so, like, we include in our Fab Fertile method, we're doing a blood chemistry review, not to diagnose, but to educate, similar with the semen analysis. And then it's like, oh, wait, here's the factors that you can work on. So I haven't had anyone come in and say, wow, your health is perfect, there's nothing you can work on. We all have health goals to work on, be it, eating out less, going to bed, focusing on our sleep, focusing on a relationship, all this can be their journey, can either bring you closer together or tear you apart. So so if you've already made a lot of changes, I encourage you to look at, like, to take that target approach, to dig deeper. It's almost that, like we talked about before, where you're, instead of just doing a surface level, we go in a little more, and that's when you can start to shift the needle, because it's like these little tweaks every day. You're like, okay, wait a minute, maybe you got a thyroid issue and you're already taking Synthroid, but then no one even looked at the full panel, seeing what, maybe you have a gut issue that or a liver imbalance, and so that's impacting your thyroid. So, like, what is the underlying healing opportunity here that's been missed? And it could be that medication is necessary, but that's just a Band-Aid approach. And then, how do we look at the other targeted diet and lifestyle changes? Also, we include genetics in here. So looking at your genes, and it's not, here's a gene and you're doomed. It's how can we support that with diet and lifestyle and supplement recommendations to support if there's any deficiencies or you're prone to something. So it is a very, obviously, an empowering approach. But if you have made those natural changes, you've done, and most people come to see that they've already done a lot, it's to include your partner. He needs to do this with you. So you're both building that strong foundation. And also to both dig a little deeper with support, right? And so it's that mind, body, spirit. So especially with these diagnoses, and I've talked about it a lot before, but with being able to visualize it working, because many times it can sort of feel that, well, maybe you feel it won't work. Maybe that RE, the reproductive endocrinologist, has told you, like me, that donor eggs are your only option. And you're like, okay, that's the only thing I can do. And hopefully if you listen to this podcast we have a lot of guests in functional medicine, natural fertility solutions, mind body fertility, there are lots of things you can do before you go that route. And maybe you do have to go that route. And so we have people too that they've decided, donor eggs, that's where I want to go. I'm ready. And we support those couples as well. So, because you still need to have a clean host, and, have, for your partner and for you to still, especially for your partner, for his sperm, and then also for you to have for it to implant and have a healthy pregnancy. So there's still things to work on your health there. So depending on where you are, right? So you just need to, and many times people, because of the planning kind of things, it's like, look, I'll try this for 6 months and then I'll do this and then I'll do that. And because really, you're in control here, right? And it may feel that you're not. There's a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what to do. Where should I go? Everyone's giving you all this different advice. So really encourage you. I like the analogy of the healing roundtable. So we have your nutrition practitioner, your OBGYN, your RE, your fertility yoga, maybe acupuncture. So you have these practitioners around you, and then you're in the center. So you don't use them all at once. Many times we just go right over to the RE, IVF, off we go. And then no one looks to see, how's your diet and lifestyle? How, maybe there's therapy here. How's your mindset? And then no one even asks you, well, what, I ask the people, why do you think it hasn't worked? And that question, most people haven't been asked that question, because they're basically being told, oh, wait, here's your diagnosis. Here's what it is. This is the only option for you. And it's really important to be, this is your journey, to be empowered and to know that you know your body best. Those little symptoms, those little signs that, each day you're like, oh, I got that little pain here. Maybe there's something weird here. But don't let anyone, second guess yourself. You know your body best. And so you can take the advice of these people on your healing roundtable, but you're in the center and you're the conductor. You're like, okay, I'm going to bring that person in, and this person in. And then that puts together a team. And as you move forward to build your family, you've explored options. So it's an empowering thing. So this lopsided, someone else is in charge and you're just, going along a path and you're like, how did I even get here? How did, you've been told IVF, but that might be for you, but is it right for you right now? Have you really gone deeper down, and to look at those areas, or has it just been a surface generalized recommendations? You feel you've done it all, but not, as they say, a little bit more targeted approach, because the generalized stuff just wastes time. It just wastes time. It's right for someone, but is it right for you? So, as I say, we have many people that we work with that have been told donor eggs, and we've helped them get pregnant naturally, or getting pregnant with their own eggs with IVF. So if it's worked for them, it can work for you. So I encourage you to, before you make the decision to move forward, to really look at a target approach. And if you wanted to have a chat with me to see if our Fab Fertile method is right for you, you can go to fabfertile.com, so fabfertile.com, and you can click on the link apply here and book a call, and we can chat and see if this approach is right for you and your partner. So this is the call is for you and your partner. And typically you'll need to have been trying naturally for 2 years, or had at least one failed IVF or IUI to work with us. And we'll see if you're a good fit for the program. And really it's to have an open mind and being able to make these changes, right? Because some of the stuff can be simple but not easy. And the people on our team, we attempt to walk the talk. It's not about perfection, or but it's sort of, we've had that dark night of the soul and made changes, significant changes in our diet and lifestyle. And it's always a daily reflection, and how do we improve, and kind of like, oh, wait a minute, I was a little out of alignment there. What happened? I was cranky or whatever it is. So you start to be able to coach yourself to be able to see. And ultimately, all of this comes back to is like, how do we slow down and practice some self-care? I know, like, the hashtag self-care buzzword and all that, but like, how do we slow down to then move forward in a very in a targeted way, and really optimizing our health so we feel awesome? And many people on the fertility journey, you may say you feel okay, but sometimes we don't know how poorly we feel until we feel awesome. And I was always like, I feel great, I'm fine. And then I was like, oh, wow, why am I going to the doctor every minute to take antibiotics for the UTIs I was constantly getting? The bacterial vaginosis, the UTIs, the yeast infections. What the heck's going on there? Oh, I'll just take antibiotics for those. What are all the sinus infections I used to get? So we see this a lot with our clients, with infections, antibiotic use, birth control, and more. So if it feels right for you, you can book a call, and love to chat with you and see if the Fab Fertile method is right for you. So take care.